Hello, and welcome to the Mindful Consultant. Today's video, we're going to be covering a very interesting topic that came out of my previous video, where OP shared her story on being on really not so great projects as a new hire and contemplating quitting consulting altogether because of something that I think is a current pain point in consulting, which is firms' effective or ineffective communication of project expectations versus what is also needed for performance review when you're coming in as a new hire for consultants. Um, if you haven't seen that video, I would highly recommend you get the background story and go to that video. I will provide the link to part one in the description below. And if you have watched it and that brought you to this video, welcome. I highly recommend you grab yourself some coffee, some water, or some wine and sit down, get comfortable, and let's chat about this. So, this is a topic I often talk with my friends about, and they're also in consulting as well. And one of the things that I find very interesting is the topic of expectations when it comes to project, but also how fulfilling those expectations can then transfer over to a good performance review that not only showcases that as a consultant you're doing the work, but that you're doing the work to a level that gets you that promotion, that gets you that advancement from a senior one to senior two, a manager one to a manager two. But the problem is that a lot of these project managers who you work with, they're running the show based on their own intuition, right? When you come into consulting, there isn't a really how to be a manager training. And if anybody working in the big four can please agree with me that any training you get is kind of, it's like at the base water level stuff, like learning social styles and learning how to do Excel and how to do Microsoft Word and how to do your timesheet and your expenses. These things are not hard to learn. They're really not. And they have no value on your performance feedback. And I think it's safe to say that if you're entering consulting, learning the administrative stuff and the PowerPoint format and to spell check everything before you submit it to a client, even to the point of writing an email, isn't something hard to pick up. And a lot of times it takes literally an hour to have that conversation with your manager. Here's the client, here are the stakeholders you're meeting, here's our meeting notes, here's the SharePoint site we're all sharing, here's the Confluence site, this is where you're getting the evidence from, these are the clients, these are their culture, stay away from this client because they're a jerk, or pair up with this one because they're great. These things anybody can pick up. The problem occurs when you have management who doesn't consider that at the end of the project, there needs to be feedback given. So, how do I make sure that I align myself with my senior and staff from the beginning of the project? So, not only are we in sync, I can leave you alone to do your work, not be a micromanager, and then come back and, you know, put you in a position where you're learning you're learning how to do the project, you're learning how to deal with clients, but also you're learning how to do work that's a level above your own, so that when the feedback comes in, your not only your utilization is up, but the partner level, the senior manager levels, who don't get to see your work on a day-to-day basis, can see that you've done even more challenging things. Now, I don't know if a lot of you are thinking, well, duh, everybody knows this. But what happens when you're a new hire? You're coming into consulting and you get a project right away. So you don't really get to network as much, but you're on a project right away and you get a manager that says we need to do XYZ with clients, but they don't take that proper step to know you as an individual or to set you up so that you're fulfilling your client's need, the manager lead, and the senior manager, the partner level, and then your own goals. A lot of time, these managers are quote unquote inexperienced. They themselves are learning how to be managers. They themselves are learning what leadership means to them. Some of them are managers not by choice. It's only because they want to progress to partner level and they really don't have any desire or skill set to manage people. And when you don't have that skill set, it's very hard for you to have empathy and to put yourself into that person's position and be like, how can I be a better manager than the person I had, so that this consultant understands the actual culture of consulting, which actually does go far beyond just the meeting notes and the deliverables. There's actually a behavioral aspect to it, a social aspect to it, or organizational aspect to it. Even the way that you think on the project and your thought process that you communicate during client meetings and team status calls is very much observed by managers and senior managers. Everything you do, everything you work on, how you even speak is observed and it is taken account, because we still have this notion where perception is key, right? Your perception of someone tells you how they are. And we're still in that era. And until the workplace culture has changed, this is exactly how it runs, which puts new hires in kind of a difficult position, because some of them, they don't wait that long to understand how the culture is really. They come on and maybe they're lucky and they get a positive project, and through that project they learn from a good manager, okay, so you're supposed to, you know do the deliverable, but you're also supposed to, take a step further in terms of making sure the deliverable is something that can be tangible and implemented in a next phase, right? But a lot of times we have to accept the fact that, at least for my case, when I first joined consulting, I was put on the bench right away for 3 months. And I had nothing to do. And a lot of the times, your peers or your counselor, they don't have time to handhold you, right? Or for other people's cases, they get on really bad projects and they think that this is what consulting is. And it's like the blind leading the blind. And then they just get a bad taste of consulting in their mouth, and then they just decide to leave. But is that really what consulting is? Or it's just like a ineffective communication style that a lot of managers need to do. So I'm going to go into a little bit of my management skill when I was a manager at a big four company, and how my senior managers, they set the layout for projects for me, which I found really helpful. And then how I carried that out in my own management skills, and how I effectively did sort of like a pre planning stage whenever a client project started, so that I was setting up my consultants, my senior and staff consultant levels, for not only success in the project, but so that when their reviews come, even if somebody hasn't seen it, they can read it and say, wow, this person has leadership quality. And there are components of one's performance review that senior managers and partner level people look at, that you kind of should tell a new hire right away, so that they can just go ahead and do those things, so that maybe they can get the promotion quicker, or they can progress and level up a lot faster than if they had to figure it out for 6 months or so, you know? How can managers effectively communicate project expectations to new hires that can also translate into their performance review? So I think the first thing is first is, when I used to meet with my seniors and consultants, the first thing to do is to clearly define the project goals. And not only the goals that you want the consultant to achieve, but also your own goals, where you lie in it, where the project lies in it, and what is the overall aim of the project that we have for the client, but also from a sales perspective from our side as the firm. Because any project that is done, we want to make sure that we provide enough value to the client to complete the contractual service agreement, but also find more work to do for like a phase two or the next era. So what is very important for managers and senior managers who have new hires to do, and what you should expect to ask about as a new hire, is to understand the project goals that we're want to complete in terms of the actual service agreement, and what we want to do going forward with the client, what kind of relationship we want to end with this client, how much further we want to take it. And I think understanding that will then allow the new hire to see the project from just more than doing PowerPoints and process maps and looking at financial data. It allows the consultant to have a bigger picture of it all. It allows you to elevate the consultant to your level, because ultimately you do want to, and this is going to go into the next part, you do want to provide roles and responsibility to the consultant so that you're not micromanaging them, so that they know just as much as you. There shouldn't be hand holding and micromanaging, but in order to prevent that, and in order to ensure that you don't have a consultant that's constantly coming to you for questions, they should know just as much as you do as the manager and as the senior manager as well. If you're a manager and you're a new hire manager and you have a senior manager who's meeting with you, you should know just as much as they do, right? Because it's going to be very important once the roles and responsibilities are given and once the project starts. You're not going to have as much time to do that prep and planning. It has to be done in the beginning. So understanding that as a new hire will be very effective for you, and you'll the more you know, the more your confidence can grow. And if that happens right in front of the project, then you can have more attention to do the other stuff and understand the administrative stuff and how to do the actual deliverable. But then you'll also have the bigger picture of sales in the back of your mind, which will help dictate how you execute your roles and responsibility. And let's go into that now too, right? Every team member should know exactly what their roles and responsibility is going to be in the project when it comes to the actual deliverable, but also in the team meetings, right? What is your expectation when it comes to contributing to team meetings? Again, one of the misconception when it comes to promotion and progressing is that you don't need to really know your teammates. You don't need for them to for the visibility within the team as much as you do with the clients. It's really the clients you need to work with, and the clients should see you. But what people fail to realize is when it comes to performance review, who are you requesting a review from? You're requesting it from your managers and your senior managers, right? So they need to understand what you've been doing during the project. Now, if you already know what your roles and responsibility is throughout the project, and that's been communicated, then that's an understanding. That's the baseline, and which needs to be communicated in your performance review as well. But also, what I find to be the cause of a lot of delays in deliverables is when the new hire, or if you're just a new consultant coming into a project, is a lot of time is spent on being confused on what exactly you're supposed to be doing on a project. So what happens is when new hires come on a project, they get the project goals, And instead of really defining what their roles is going to be, meaning, are you going to be leading meetings? Is there going to be an expectation of you leading a meeting, or creating PowerPoints? Or are you going to be involved in future sales? Are you being set up to be a senior when you're just only a staff right now, but you're going for promotion, right? So roles and responsibility really need to be clearly defined. But on top of that, that also includes responsibility of communicating with your managers. Everybody's different. Every manager is different. Sometimes you won't help if you get a micromanager, and sometimes you can't help if you get a good manager. It's really the roll of the dice. And either way, it's going to be up to you to really understand how they work, what their roles and responsibility are for you, and what your roles and responsibility are for them. I always tell my seniors that there are layers to roles and responsibilities that you need to understand. It's all about how you are performing for your clients, how you're performing for your manager, and then how you're performing for your senior and your staffs, right? What is your role toward your clients, which is to provide the service? And then what is the roles and responsibility for your manager, which should be communicated to you as, you should be an independent worker. I shouldn't have to ask you to set up a meeting. You should anticipate meetings. If a client is saying, we should meet next week for review on feedback and gaps, for example, you should be able to anticipate that and go ahead and set up that meeting without me asking you. If you're going to be like sick, then I love to communicate via email, or if you want to communicate something urgent, then text is better. You should know exactly how to communicate to your manager, and then your manager should also know how they should communicate with you. Because what if there's a problem with communicating emails versus text, right? It's very silly, but it's actually very important to know the tooling, what your role is going to be for the client. Are you supposed to anticipate meetings and then go ahead and do it? That needs to be clearly defined. And if you're not getting that, this is something you should ask your manager to elaborate for you. And as a manager, it's really important for you to think this way, so that you're setting up the person who's working for you for success, and also minimizing your need to oversee their whole work. We need to train leaders, and that's exactly what consultants should be, because they really are independent team members that come in for a project to work as a team, but for only a momentary time, which leads to our next segment, which is timeline and milestones. Now, I think it's really obvious that timelines and milestones are already agreed upon. It's some of them are in the contract itself, and then a lot of the times it should be already established during the kickoff meeting and initial discussion with clients. But this is where knowledge is also needed to be implemented. The client knows why the timeline is important. You, as a senior manager, may know why the timeline is important. But I'll be honest, sometimes on projects, I didn't know why the timeline and milestones were so important. A lot of the times, managers and senior managers, but mostly senior managers, are in discussions with clients about timelines that need to occur before a next phase of work can continue or start. So a lot of the milestones and the timelines are decided upon because the client doesn't want it to overlap with another crucial project or another crucial deliverable or an examination that they're coming up to. And I really do think this is very important to let your consultants, your seniors and staff know this, because if I really do feel like senior managers understand the importance of meeting that deadline far beyond what's in the SLA and the agreement, because they understand that there's other things going on, that if the milestone for your project doesn't hit, it affects other teams, affects other stuff. And that, I think, is very, very important for a new hire, a new person on your team to know right from the beginning, so that they are also feeling the same urgency and accountability as a senior manager and as the client themselves. Because we take work far more seriously when we feel like we're accountable for it and we know the consequences of not meeting it. And it does affect our behavior. And when you're working with urgency and you understand exactly why a timeline should be met, it does show in your behavior. And you're not as lax on the project as if you're just like, okay, we need to hit a 30th. I need to do like 10 issue management stuff and just get that over with. Some people don't take it seriously. And this is why. And I think it also helps. I feel like it also helps you feel like part of the team. It also helps you feel part of the firm. You know, when you share that urgency with your senior manager, you feel like you are part of an organization now, right? You guys are all stressed about everything because you understand why it's important. And just letting the new hire or letting the new consultant just know just to the limit of what they need to do is not enough.